So, the gaming world just experienced another great moment in gaming with the release of the Super Mario All-Star 3D. That is amazing. It is literally freaking amazing. It is a great, wonderful moment in gaming to see a celebration go down like this, where we got three of the greatest Nintendo games literally ever made on a single cart that we can play remastered on the frickin' Switch anywhere we go. I can go to the chicken wing store. I can go to the chicken wing restaurant, sit down with my daughter and play Mario. Huge deal, big deal, crazy deal, great moment. And in response to witnessing a great moment in gaming happen, I'm going to go over another 10 greatest moments in gaming. No particular order. Let's do this. Number 1, You're the Bad Guys, Final Fantasy VII. Not a lot of people stop to think about this. I can't believe how often it is skipped over. But you're the bad guys. Avalanche is a terrorist organization, a freaking extremist group. And you start the game involved with them. Now, there's a whole lot of more stuff going on in Final Fantasy VII, but just to break down the beginning, it would be no different than an extremist group of 5 or 6 people that walk into a nuclear power plant or walk into a coal power plant or whatever and blow it up and wreak havoc across the city, and power is out and people are cold and yada yada. Look, the way you would feel is terrorized. And you play the heroes in Final Fantasy. That is the way it works. And normally, yes, you are bringing down the evil corporate entity. But if you really want to stop and think about this from the other side of the equation, when you talk to people in towns and whatnot, they're not too happy about what Avalanche is doing. And while you may be on the side of justice or righteous or whatever you want to call it, you really need to stop and think about it, because looking from the other angle, you are putting people's lives in danger, you are endangering people, you are harming the way that they live, and yes, this is all a narrative about how we're pulling oil out of the planet and yada yada, and we're causing all this damage. Yes, it's true, okay? But and you're playing the righteous when you want to make a better system, and they're going about it in an extremist way. And look, your childhood friend put you in a situation where she made you an ecological terrorist. That's what happened. That is the beginning of the game. And though we may all love Jessie now, though we may have really fallen in love with these characters in the remake, where we got a lot more time with them and seen a lot more of what was going on, the truth of the matter is this. A great moment in gaming is that in Final Fantasy VII, we started the game as the bad guys. Interesting. Number 2, Mega Man X, finding Dr. Light in that pod and getting the Hadouken. I didn't see it coming. It blew me away. It was nothing I was ready for. The attack was crazy strong. Mega Man actually says, Hadouken! It is so freaking wild, so freaking cool, so freaking amazing, and it is something that I have remembered about Mega Man X forever. Because this was a frickin' wild, great moment in gaming. Oh, and by the way, the Hadouken can kill pretty much any enemy in the game in a single attack. So, go get it. Number 3. My dad used to take me to the mall when I was a younger person. Couldn't just go to the mall. I had to have an escort. And my dad would escort me to the mall from time to time. And he would take me to this place called Aladdin's Castle. And he would hand me some money. He would play some games. I would play some games. Sometimes we would play some games. Sometimes I would run off on my own for $20 while he did whatever it was he had to do. And one day I entered the arcade. And in the back of the arcade, I heard this. From that moment on, my freaking life had changed. I didn't even know what a fighting game was. And then all of a sudden, this is sitting at the back. And yes, I went up to it, and I put a quarter in that machine, and I played it. And here's the real crazy kicker. At the time, I'd got there at just the right moment because nobody was there. Nobody was playing. But believe me when I tell you that in a simple hour since they opened, because we were there right when the door opened, an hour after they opened, that machine was occupied all freaking night. And I got my ass kicked by the computer, and then I got my ass kicked by real people, and then I discovered that the game was on Super Nintendo, and then I played it on Super Nintendo, and I practiced my moves, and I went back to the arcade, and I got my ass kicked by the computer, and I got my ass kicked by real people. This game was mind-blowing for me, and it also gave me my first game girl crush thing because I fell pretty hard for Cammy White back then. She was too good. And it wasn't just the way she looked. She was also my main. That was the person that I was legitimately good with. The first actual victories that I was able to gain in the arcade against living people was Cammy White. It wasn't Ryu. It wasn't Dalsim. It wasn't any of these other characters. It was Cammy. Cammy was the one that I figured out how to move, how to aggressively attack, how to use priorities. She entered me into the fighting game world, and because of that, she holds a place even today in the top 10 game girls of my life, which who knows, maybe that's another list. Number 4, Metal Gear Solid, the Psycho Mantis boss fight. This was mind-blowing. This was unbelievably mind-blowing. From the fact that he would do these little gimmicks like move the controller and do stupid things like that. But then when he started reading the memory card, when he talked, and he was all of a sudden like talking directly to me, and he was able to talk about how I avoided traps and how I moved cautiously through the game. And I was like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And then when we started playing, and when I tried to line up to shoot him, and anytime you would try to look through your gun or something like that, you would see yourself because he could redirect, and you would look through his. This boss fight was unbelievable. He could read what you were doing. He would block attacks, and then to figure out later on, because I beat him without knowing that you could switch the controller. I had no idea that was a thing the first time. Later, when I figured out you could switch the controller and play, and then you would mess up his psychic link, that was a fourth wall break of legendary proportions that I will never fucking forget. Number 5, Super Mario 3, the frog suit. The frog suit was awesome and awful. The first time I saw that suit, I wanted it. I just wanted it. It was something completely unique in the whole game of Super Mario 3 that I was aware of at the time, because later I figured out that there was a frickin' Hammer Mario, and holy shit. But look, this Mario, when I got the frog suit for the first time, I found it in a chest, and I was like, holy crap, what is that? And then I put it on, and then I couldn't move right. On land, the frog suit is completely frickin' useless. But man, in the water, the frog suit served a purpose. This makes it both one of the greatest moments in gaming for me and one of the worst moments in gaming for me too, because it sucks to literally find 5 frog suits back to back in every frickin' mushroom house and realize there are only really 2 water levels where you can make use of them, and the rest of the game, and I realize people have beat this entire game with just the frog suit, but you know what? I don't have time for that bullshit. And because I don't, the frog suit sits as one of the greatest moments, and also a moment that irritates me greatly, but I do love the frog suit. Also, number 6, Super Mario 3, the Giant World. The first time that you step into World 4, and you go down the pipe, and you go across, and you go into the level, and the giant turtle walks up, and all the blocks are big, and that was amazing. That is my favorite world in Super Mario 3, is Giant World, and for good reason, because that is mind-blowing. There's no other world like it in Super Mario 3. And Super Mario 3 was good about having every single world have its own unique flavor, but there's something that is completely unforgettable about frickin' Giant World. Number 7, Super Mario All-Stars. Why? Not just because we got the new one that just came out, but this deserves a spot on the list because it was the first time in memory, for me, that I remember a remastery. I played Super Mario Brothers. I played Super Mario 2. I played Super Mario 3. I didn't know about the lost levels. We got this game on the Super Nintendo. And the reason it's mind-blowing, the reason it's one of the greatest events, one of the greatest moments in gaming, is because this blew us away. We saw a completely remastered full 3 games that we'd already loved, realizing that it was possible to do this kind of thing. And we got a game that we never even got. And we got it all on a single cartridge. And that kind of thing is now a regular in the industry. But we seen it all the way back on the Super Nintendo and never really paid it enough mind. But now we see it all the time. A single disc of all 3 of the Sands of Time games, remastered, we got it. We got that for Devil May Cry. We get that for game after game after game after game now, allowing us to play series of games that otherwise sometimes most of us would have missed out on. And then other times it's a great excuse for us to go back, and it all started back here with Super Mario All-Stars. Number 8, Dragon Ball Z Hyper Dimension Zone. Why? The whole freaking game. The whole freaking game is one of the greatest moments in gaming history for me. I was playing emulation. I was downloading games. I was checking out Super Nintendo games. I come across this masterpiece. I'm trying out Super Boytoden, Boytoden 2, Boytoden 3, Butoden, whatever. Then I come across Hyper Dimension Zone. And this game, it was mind-blowing. It felt like you couldn't even do this on a Super Nintendo. The sprite work was absolutely amazing. The battle system was risk versus reward, which allowed you to actually sacrifice hit points for major attacks. And then if you powered up, if you found those little instances where you could stun the enemy and you could power up, that actually added to your life bar, meaning 2 good players could hold a fight for literally 30 minutes if they were so inclined. If you got hit hard enough, you would switch battlefields. That was a first for me. I'd never seen that. There were fights in the sky. There were fights on the ground. You could actually fight in the backgrounds. You could have clashes where you would fight crazy, or then you would blow each other to the background, and one guy would like fire fireballs and the other guy would have to dodge. This game was loaded and is still to this day one of the most impressive fighting games on the entire Super Nintendo library. And a lot of people missed out on it, but for me, this was a freaking great moment in gaming, was discovering this thing. Number 9, Ninja Gaiden had cutscenes. A small thing that we can all laugh at now. But back then, this was a huge deal. Back then, this made frickin' waves. Because nowadays, it's expected in video games that there are cutscenes, that there are CGI moments, that there's something to look forward to, that there's a little treat in between levels or whatever, and you feel like you're accomplishing and getting little rewards. And back then, all the way back then, there was this little game called Ninja Gaiden that had small cinematic masterpieces in between levels. And while it's a joke nowadays, while it doesn't amount to anything special today, trust me when I tell you that when we were kids and we turned this game on and those two ninjas jumped in the air and they cut each other and then one of them ended up dying when they fell to the ground, it was unforgettable. Number 10, Dark Knight Cecil. Dark Knight Cecil. Final Fantasy IV, the whole concept of Dark Knight Cecil is beautiful. This character is one of the biggest things that pushed RPGs to their current spot today. He is troubled. He grew up being raised by a king. He owes that king everything. One day, the king's attitude starts to change. He asks you to take up the sword of darkness. You do so because you believe in the man that took in a stray and made him a prince. That's basically what you are. Everything that you are comes from the fact that the king took in an orphan. So, you don't question the man's wisdom. He's always done right by you. And then he starts making more extreme demands, such as taking the crystal from Mysidia. You do so. You slaughter those people. It is a horrific scene, even when you got to think back to it. And yes, I realize graphics are where they were, but the ideas behind what was going on, that you killed those people that didn't even put up a fight, took that gem, that crystal, took it back to your king, only to be basically denounced when you decided to say, excuse me, but what is our intention here? Well, he don't want to hear that. So you get denounced and you get a package delivery job. You're now one of the lowest ranks. You've become a delivery boy. Well, your friend, Kane, tells you that this will pass. You've proven yourself time and time again to the king. Do this one task, and then things will get back on track. But doing this one task actually causes a bigger problem that leads to a path of redemption when you destroy the town of summoners and leave only one survivor, who then you see what is going on. You see that the man that you admire, the man that you serve, your father figure, has turned. And as Dark Knight Cecil, you cannot stand against the darkness that lays before you while you too are of the dark. You have to go through this path of redemption back to Mysidia to stand in the light, to face yourself, to realize who you had become alongside the man who also has changed greatly. And there's big reasons behind that. And if you've never played this game, I want you to do that. So that's as far as I'll go. This tale of redemption set the standards for how RPGs would work from that day forward. Stories like Once Upon a Time, the world was in danger because of frickin' cloud of darkness was not enough. Characters had to have dimension, they had to have depth, they had to have purpose, and every character had to play into an overall narrative that meant something to the development of the entire game, making Final Fantasy IV and Dark Knight Cecil great moments in gaming by themselves. And that was it. That was 10 more greatest moments in gaming. So I'll leave you to think about them, and I'm going to get out of here.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.